Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again across the Louisiana plain, where we are advancing the cause of constitutional freedom and liberty, raising the profile of great constitutional conservative candidates across the state of Louisiana, and day by day, steadily, relentlessly, inexorably, and courageously draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom, brought to you by freedom-loving Louisiana First Patriots. Hello, State of Freedom warriors. Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of your day. We are so grateful for you. You are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the best listening family anyone could possibly hope for. And you know that we're only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, your friendship, your financial support. And if you are looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please do that at freedomstate.us. We would also love it if you would help us get the word out about the State of Freedom and help spread the reach. Please like the show on whatever platform you listen to us, subscribe to it, and share it. You can share short clips instead of the whole interview or whole episode over on our YouTube and Rumble channels. And links to those, as you know, are always in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. We are so honored to be affiliate partners for General Michael Flynn's movie, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. The DVD can be purchased from several popular retailers, and he's on tour screening and promoting the film. If you'd like to support General Flynn and the State of Freedom, visit freedomstate.us to get your copy of the DVD, to buy Flynn movie merchandise, or purchase tickets to a live screening. Our affiliate link is also in the show notes. Today, we have the founder and CEO of Glint, the transactional gold and silver company, joining us today to talk about monetary freedom. Before we introduce you to Jason Cozens, let me read the scripture of the day. It's Proverbs chapter 28, verses 1 through 2, and it says, "Guilty criminals experience paranoia even though no one threatens them. But the innocent lovers of God, because of righteousness, will have the boldness of a young, ferocious lion." And I love this scripture because for those of us who have mistakenly believed that Christians should be quiet and sit in a corner and try and get along with everybody, no matter what is happening, this gives us permission. And really, it instructs us and corrects us by saying that the lovers of God, because of righteousness, will have the boldness of a young, ferocious lion. It is righteous to be bold, and it is for the sake of righteousness and seeing righteousness expand in society that we must be bold. So for all of you who have lived biting your tongue when it comes to evil, probably not that many in this feisty audience, but maybe there are a few of you still out there. It's time to speak up and do it boldly while we still can. The time to rise up in fierce, powerful boldness for the sake of righteousness because you love God is now.
It is now, and reading a little bit about what a beautiful prayer in the Proverbs, and reading about Jason Cozens, our guest today, and reading about why he started Glint Pay after the banking collapse of 08 or 09. He wanted to figure out what we can do for citizens across the country and even across the globe to secure their financial solvency, and what can we do to battle against the unsteady nature of the fiat money, which is becoming increasingly devalued. And I guarantee you he wouldn't have gotten to where he is now if he didn't have the heart of a ferocious lion. So what a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us today, Jason. Welcome, at least by Zoom, to the great state of Louisiana. And we are interested to talk to you about some legislation that we have going down here that could make gold and silver transactional currency in the state of Louisiana. We're hugely excited about it. But I'd like to start, for our benefit of our listeners, for you to give them a little bit about your background and how the chart that you took that got you to where you are right now, which is really on the cutting edge of creating a real economic and financial revolution in the United States of America with an extraordinary concept. So tell us about your background and tell us about it.
Well, Chris and Danielle, thank you for inviting me today to talk to you and your listeners, and for your listeners to take time to listen. It is a fascinating world that we live in, and my story begins back. I actually went to a Benedictine boarding school in England, and from there, went to university to study architecture. So I'm not from financial services, and I think that is definitely my advantage because I know actually.
Right. So you did not let your formal education get in the way of your real knowledge there.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, what I did is studied architecture and actually threw myself into the virtual reality. The first time it was cool. I was helping visualize what the new Sydney Olympic Stadium would look like and what our late Queen St. George's Chapel, when it burnt down, what the beautiful vaulted ceiling had looked like. And then I pivoted and I started hiring teams of software engineers instead of structural engineers. And we started building e-commerce systems for some of the first high street retailers in the UK and across Europe. And that was the world I lived in. I was digital product development and entrepreneurship. And it was the world I lived in when the 2008 financial crisis happened, which you mentioned, Chris. And I'm sure some of you remember that. I mean, it was quite a time. It was the first time that I realized that a bank is not a risk-free deposit of funds. By design, it is a fractional reserve banking system, and at best, only maybe 10% of the client funds are in the bank. And it was the first time I realized that, and I thought there's got to be a way in which we can save our hard-earned money somewhere where it's not put at risk. And I thought, I'm not really that interested in the interest rate. I want somewhere where it's safe. But when I thought about the interest rate, I thought, why do we even, what is so important about this interest rate? And of course, it takes you down the rabbit hole of the depreciating purchasing power of money. And why is it that it depreciates in a way that's completely outside of our control? And I didn't know the answer at the time. Of course, I started to learn that, we had been we had been on a gold standard until as recently as a year after I was born in 1971. But then we came off the gold standard. Nixon, some of you will all know, Nixon temporarily came off the gold standard and started this completely, this loose monetary system that allows them to print as much money as they want. And of course, that increasing money supply that inflation of the money supply is what creates inflation. And it's exceptionally frustrating, isn't it, to sometimes hear media commentators talk about, well, why do we have so much inflation when we have rising costs of food? No. That is the consequences of inflation. Inflation is caused ultimately by inflation of the money supply. And we've seen how much money and debt is being created since we came off the gold standard. And it's obviously that debt is worrying everybody. But back then, I thought that inflation, that we were experiencing in '08 was bad enough. And I learned that at the time, the dollar and the pound had lost 85% of their purchasing power in my lifetime. 85%. Now it's 90%. So think about that. We do say it a lot, I think, within our community, don't we? The sound money advocacy world that, we've lost it. But think about that. It's become totally worthless. And so, of course, no wonder we're all forced to put our money into risky investments, businesses, which, I think there's a great place for that. There's a great place for investing in our capitalistic society and helping businesses grow and all of that kind of stuff. But we've got to understand what that is. That's investment in people and their business models and how that might work out or might not work out and what kind of returns we would get. But money, what is money? What is money? And I think money is the ledger of promises between men and women. And that should be sacrosanct. And it should never be something that's corrupted.
And when you say corrupted, Jason, you mean specifically subject to increases or decreases in value based upon how much of it is printed.
That's right. I mean, if I'm fortunate enough for you to help me with something, and I say, look, I'll promise to do something for you next year, I mean, there once was a time when the village would get together and help someone build their house, the newly wed couple, And then, of course, that couple would help build the next person's house, or go back and help build their house if it fell down. And there's community and those promises. Now, can you imagine how upset people would be if if the next year you needed some help with yours and they said, "I'm sorry, actually, I can only help you build half a house." It's we need a ledger as well. We need a ledger of promises, because we can't be trusted to remember what we owe everybody or the things we go through in our lives. But it should be sacrosanct. It shouldn't be diluted, and some people shouldn't benefit more than others. I mean, that's the other thing I learned, of course, about this monetary system. Is perfectly encapsulated by Cantillon. He said the Cantillon effect is that those closest to the money supply benefit disproportionately from those further away.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Well, it means that the government, that when the money is printed, it is the first people who benefit as the government, and the government can make totally unsustainable promises to the electorate, and they do that just to get into power. The power hungry just make promises, and they have no way to be able to sustain those promises, but they make them, and the central bank creates the money for them to carry on this Ponzi scheme. The next group of people to benefit from this are the bankers. The banking system, yeah, they serve a purpose, but it's just a fixed system. They sell a product to people without even having to pay for it. They create money out of thin air. It's called ex nihilo in Latin, out of nothing. And they lend that to people and they make money on it. And somehow they're the richest people in society. Why is that? What about a wonderful cellist?
And it's playing God. God's the only one who can create something out of nothing.
Yeah. And then what happens when you can't pay that back because you get ill or something? They take your very real house off you, So the banks are next. And then the third group are the richest in society, who are able to borrow any amount of money nearly for free, just about, especially with the low interest rates we've seen previously over the last 20, 30 years. And there's no wonder, therefore, that 4 or 5 men own more than 50% of the bottom 50% of America. That's because they've been able to borrow huge amounts of money, billions, and be able to buy very real assets with those things. And then, of course, by the time anybody else gets to borrow some money, and if you're a hardworking young person, it takes time for you to build up your savings. Those assets have all got up in price. And this is a really shocking thing. And I don't know if you know this, but in 1970, when I was born, an average American house cost $17,000. And today, the average house in the US costs $400,000. So the $17,000 US dollars doesn't even give you the down payment on the $400,000. So if you'd saved your $17,000, goes nowhere.
You can't even live in a car.
And the amount of gold that took to buy a house in 1970 was 17,000 grams. And today, 17,000 grams buys you nearly 3 houses.
That right there, Jason, is such a powerful, powerful statement. I want to make sure that our listeners understand that correctly. Right now, for $17,000, which was the cost of a house in 1970, you couldn't even make the down payment. But with the value of $17,000 worth of gold, you could buy 3 houses?
Nearly 3. I think it's 2.8.
Wow.
That's pretty incredible.
Because our money has been corrupted over that time, that successive government, central banks, they've printed more and more and more money, and that money has become worthless. And of course, it's benefited America in lots of ways. Especially because the US has been the reserve currency of the world. And what does that mean? Well, it means that everybody else is using it to buy things. And of course, when they came off the gold standard, you might ask, well, why did it continue to be the reserve currency of the world if it wasn't backed by gold anymore? Well, they flew to the Middle East and they spoke to the Arabs and they said, we'll protect you if you promise to make sure that everybody buys gold off you in US dollars. So it continued to be the reserve currency of the world. But of course, the US has weaponized the dollar just that one too many times. And now people are starting to say, and the US debt, it didn't matter about the debt going up because, hey, everyone's going to buy our debt. Everyone needs dollars, $10 trillion, $15 trillion. It doesn't matter. Suddenly it's at nearly $35 trillion. And suddenly people are going, oh, hang on a second, we don't really need these dollars because now we can buy oil in rubles or in Chinese yuan or in Indian rupee. So suddenly people are questioning that. So that's another thing. That's a slightly different topic. But the point is, it's become corrupt. The least often in society are the ones hurt the most. It's very sad. I mean, I was in Paris at one of these wonderful French dining experiences where they have this, big long table and you're all sat with a bunch of people and they kind of slap the amazing food down on the table. And I'm sat next to an American woman and her daughter and I'm chatting away. And the daughter said, yeah, I've kind of given up on the idea of buying a house. And I know loads of people like that. And the mother said, yeah, I've told her just forget about it. And that is shocking. That is shocking that a whole generation now cannot have the same life that their grandparents or even their parents had because these people have printed money and created debt for future generations to have to deal with. Now, going back to 2008, I was kind of, well, hang on. So if gold's the ultimate form of money, it cannot be corrupted. It's created when two neutron stars collide. I mean, it is just, we can't do anything there. You can corrupt anything that's man-made. Its nature is defined by man, whatever that is, can become corrupt. Even with the best of intentions. I've met some of the people who are working on CBDCs. They're young, enthusiastic people. They talk about all these wonderful things about it, but it can be corrupt. And we know that some people want to corrupt it and some people do corrupt it. And we see what happens in China, etc. with it. But anything that's the nature of which is defined by a human being can be corrupted. But gold can't be. And so that's why it stood the test of time through famine and upheaval and war and time. It's trusted everywhere by everybody on the planet that, fighter pilots have gold coins sewn into their belts in case they're ejected into enemy territory. They don't want to pull out US dollars or a Bitcoin USB stick to try and bribe their way out of the country, wherever they are in the world. Gold's accepted everywhere. How did that even happen, So I just thought, well, why don't we just enable gold as money? We can't rely on our governments to do it. To be honest, I kind of sympathize with them. I mean, which politician wants to handle that one? I mean, it's a huge problem. I mean, it's bigger. It's too big for anyone, I think. They just prefer to kick the ball down the field and let someone else deal with it. So, I mean, I didn't coin this phrase. Someone describing Glint said, the tantalizing opportunity of a bottom-up return to sound money. In my delusional way, I thought I could and I should, and it kind of became. It was like a vocation. If anyone's experienced that, and I just felt that I had to. I had a very nice lifestyle business. I sold my first e-commerce business. I was traveling the world. I had a great little team doing e-com stuff, specialist stuff for people. I was living in Sydney, actually, I think at one point, and just swimming in the ocean, and doing bits of work. And it was great. But then I just felt I had to do this. What if on my deathbed, I was thinking I had the opportunity to create a sound money movement like this, a technology and a system, and I hadn't done it? The whole what if thing was just haunting me. I had to try, and people told me I wouldn't be able to do it. Technically, I was told that I wouldn't be allowed to do it.
But it's real now.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's real now.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information.
Jason, we had in our legislature Representative Cruz recently, and Senator Valerie Hodges will be testifying on a companion bill, presenting her bill. And they are presenting their legislation, if it passes, and the way that it is structured is that Louisiana citizens will basically be able to use gold and silver the same way they use money, and even have a debit card, and will just simply be able to engage in day to day transactions using a debit card backed by gold, which is so attractive and so appealing to people. But could you sort of, in very, very basic terms, explain how it works?
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to explain to you how Glint works. So our company is called Glint, and by the way, we chose that name not just because gold is, has a glint. I've got some glasses, with golden handles. It glints, of course, it's beautiful, but also because the fiscal monetary system looking down looking forward looked pretty dark, and I think we need a glint of hope. So glint that's one of the reasons we called it glint. But glint is definitely a solution that could be used to effectively enable this legislation. And so with Glint, you're able to, and you can use Glint now. You can download it from the App Store, and this could be a Louisiana gold currency, powered by Glint maybe, and you can buy as little as 1 cent's worth of gold. And that's really important because I believe in our company vision statement is we believe in a world where everyone has an equal opportunity to prosper. And we believe in our mission is that we deliver a reliable and secure gold currency and to help with that vision, deliver that vision. So you can buy 1 cent's worth of gold. And when I say that, you can use a debit or credit card or an ACH transfer or a wire transfer, and you can fund that account or buy gold with that fiat currency, and you're buying a tiny amount of a real solid gold bar that is stored in a vault and insured. And you can, of course, buy millions of dollars as well, and big and wealthier people who've worked hard all their lives might have more money to buy gold, and companies as well. We don't offer business accounts at the moment, but we're going to be. And when you've bought that gold, you can send that, you can save it, which I encourage everybody to do. I also, by the way, encourage everybody to have some bars and coins at home. I think it's important for that too. But Glint is something very different to bars and coins. You can save it in the app and see how it's getting on. The fact that the last 4 weeks it's gone up about 10 or 15, 12% or something. And you can see all of that. And then you can also send it to somebody else. Now, we haven't switched this on in the US, but the technology allows this to happen, and we do enable this in the UK. And I can send that gold peer-to-peer just as easy as sending a text. And I think that's important because I think the debit card that's linked to the account kind of sometimes overshadows this. But ultimately, we want ultimate independence from everything, including the banking system and the payment system. So the ability to send gold from me to you, Chris, and from you, Chris, to Danielle, it's important. And that you can gift that, you can use it for paying for products, in lieu of products or services. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do is have a independent form of money, a secure form of money, gold, that's able to be transmitted to each other as long as we've got the internet from one account to another.
And you're talking about like using it like Cash App or Venmo.
Yeah, just send it. It's from my app. It's as quickly as sending a text. Boom, gone with a nice message. Happy birthday, happy Christmas, whatever you want to say. Thanks for mail to me yesterday. Gifting the gift of gold is going to be really a beautiful thing to do. And then of course, but the problem with that is that your local grocery store might not accept Glint. They might not have a Glint account, and you might not be able to do that. And so we worked very hard at the beginning to build the technology that would allow us to integrate into the existing payment system. So Glint is both independent of the existing financial services system and totally integrated with it. So we can give you that unprecedented liquidity, and you can spend your gold with the Glint debit card. You just link it to your gold wallet anywhere in the world. I mean, if I'm just like opening my account now, I can see, where I'm spending my gold, but I'm using it for flights. I'm using it for hotels. I'm using it for coffees. Let's see what my last transaction was on my app.
So you're getting out of the debt-based system completely.
Yeah, completely. And this morning, let me just get this right. Yeah, this morning I had breakfast at Little America, Salt Lake City, and it cost me 0.2246 grams of gold. I don't know if you can see that.
This
Can
is
you tell
just,
your viewers?
That's
You can see
awesome.
that, yeah.
Danielle,
So,
this is
so
Yeah.
amazing.
yeah, so I think that that gives it the ultimate flexibility. And people say, well, what happens if the banking system goes down? Well, great, we'll probably still be able to use the Mastercard system. But what if the Mastercard system goes down? Well, we'll be able to use peer to peer. And so once the internet goes down, well, we've got Starlink. We can thank Elon Musk for that. And what if the whole system, electricity, everything goes down? Well, we've got the gold in the vault, and Louisiana will have the gold in the vault, and it'll go back to a very old-fashioned kind of banking style where everything was in the vault, and we'll just offer checkbooks or something. So we can survive,
The
to a whole
apocalypse.
load. Yeah, yeah. But I think right now, let's hope that never happens. And right now, we're giving you this unprecedented liquidity to be able to put yourself onto your own personal gold standard.
That's amazing. And you kind of touched on what I wanted to get to next, which is how can people trust this process? How are people's metals? You said they're secured in a vault, but how are they partitioned and how are they immediately accessible?
Yeah, so first of all, I think I realized early on that it was really important that we embrace the existing regulatory system. Whatever you think about it, it exists, and we didn't want to get shut down by anybody, so we became regulated. We're regulated in the UK by the Bank of England's Financial Conduct Authority, and with that comes all the processes and systems you'd expect from a regulated entity. The KYC, the anti-money laundering, the fraud prevention, the consumer duty responsibilities that we have, and we get audited on that by our regulators. They don't actually regulate gold itself because gold, we're not hypothecating it. We're not lending it. We're not. It's not a derivative. It's the real metal. It's kind of like buying and selling chairs or tables. But it just happens to be very valuable. But everything around it, as such, I think as a company, we're one of those few companies that has that discipline, and we work with banks here in the US. And that's really important. It's been very frustrating for me to see this big surge in interest around the internet, around cryptocurrencies, and see a lot of companies just setting up and doing transfers of value from one to another without having any regulation. And yeah, the SEC, I think, have been pretty poor in how they've behaved, but also a lot of companies have too. We didn't take that path, and so we're audited to make sure that we're doing things properly. The gold that we're buying is real physical gold, and it's back to back. So when you're buying gold, you're buying a real piece of metal. You're either buying that from somebody else who's selling at the same time. Our system tries to net off, and if it can't, it then offsets it to our liquidity provider, who provides gold in the vault. So that's how that works. And then on a monthly basis, we make sure that we get Bureau Veritas, who are one of the world's most famous, reputable precious metals auditors, to go in and check that all our client gold is there as it should be and it's safe. It's also insured by Lloyd's of London, one of the biggest insurance syndicates in the world. And we've raised up until now, to build all this tech and regulatory stuff around the world, we've raised about $40 million, and of course we've had a lot of due diligence from them as well. So we're getting due diligence and audit everywhere, from our investors to the banks to the regulators, and that's created a very disciplined approach here at Glint.
Yeah. And it sounds it sounds to us like the gold that you are securing and protecting and guarding through Glint is a lot more secure than the fiat currency that people are investing in the banks. Is that a fair conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes people really focus on, well, how do I know my gold's there and stuff? Well, can we just compare apples with apples for a second? By design, there is no money in your bank account. By design, the gold is here with Glint.
So with the fractional reserve system, one of the legislators explained it to us the other day, and I'd like to get your feedback on this. I'm sure that most people who invest their money in banks do not realize that for every $10 a bank has on deposit, is it correct that they can loan out $100 for every $10 that they have on deposit?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be the situation where the old-fashioned banks, they'd have $100, so they might lend out $90 to other people. They're taking your money to lend out to others, but that's all changed. They can create money just on their computer, literally ex nihilo, out of nothing, just type it out and they can create it. Now, the governments and the central banks, they do restrict them to a little tiny bit and say, well, you can only lend out, 10 times or whatever, how much customer money you took in. But yeah, they're not restricted to that.
So it's even worse now, because not only can they loan out real money that people have deposited, they can make new money.
Yes.
And do what they want to do with it. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Let me ask Jason, how are your customers benefiting? You probably have a happy set of customers. Is it working well for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are taking some wins right now because, and they're selling some of their gold because it's at all time. It keeps breaking all time highs. I keep sending messages out to people saying gold's hit another all time high, and of course it keeps breaking the records. And so some people are taking some well deserved profits from that and say, well, I'll spend some of my gold now or sell it. And so we've seen more activity around spending and selling that we normally see. And of course, yes, they're benefiting from it. We do offer choice. In the app, you've got dollars or you've got gold. You can link your card to either. So it's important that we do that. But I think, so we're offering, our strapline is gold as security, Glint it's key. And one of my non-executive directors, who was CEO of the World Gold Council, said to me once early on, it's a good time to buy gold at any price. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. And it's been with me a long time. And I really get it now. When you buy gold, you're not buying a speculative asset. It's money. So you're not buying it because you think it might go up. Really, what you should be thinking is, and people do this, they buy it because it's security and they know it won't, and over time anyway. Yes, the price of gold goes up and down as really confidence in fiat currency goes down and up and generally down, but you're buying it because of security. So, when you buy insurance, you don't worry about what the cost of the insurance will be next year. You just buy insurance because you need it right now. I need insurance for my house now. And yeah, the insurance might go up or down next week, but I've got the insurance. I'm secure. So I think our customers love our product. I mean, we've got very high Trustpilot scores, and I think the only time we get one stars is we dropped the ball very few times, but it's often because we're upset with you because your product's not available in our country and something like that,
which is fair.
But I think what Louisiana is doing is fantastically interesting, because listeners might be thinking now, well, if Glint's already up and running and can do all of this, well, why does the state need to pass legislation? Well, I think
that's what they asked. I have to interject here, Jason. That is what several of the legislators who were questioning Representative Cruz and Treasurer Fleming asked. If we can already do this, why do we need the legislation?
Two very important reasons. Number one, that the state protects the right of the citizen to use gold as money. Because as things get worse with the federal monetary system, you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to try and do all kinds of things that we don't like. And the state, by them authorizing gold to be transactional gold and silver to be legal tender, they are protected. You've got the weight of the state, the power of the state behind you to make sure that can't be eroded. That's to protect your rights under the Constitution. That's number one. The second thing is that by enabling gold as money, that in the Constitution, Article 1, Clause 10, says that any state may make gold and silver legal tender. They can't make cryptocurrencies legal tender. They can't do anything else. I can't make gold or silver legal tender. Neither can my company, but the state can. The founders gave the state the power to create hard money only. And that was important. They worried maybe the federal system would to keep that in check. And this part of this is about keeping the federal system in check.
Absolutely.
Or creating a check. And so by doing that, it enables gold and silver, transactional gold and silver, authorized by the state to be a currency. Why is that so important if you can still practically do it? Why is it important that they authorize it? Well, if they authorize it as a currency, it should not be subject to capital gains. It is immoral to tax money.
Amen.
it's immoral that, money should depreciate because of their activities. Unequal weights and measures are like an anathema to the Lord. That is immoral. It is immoral to tax currency and money. And so at the moment, the IRS classify gold bars and coins as collectibles. Even the ones that have, in 2011, there was being various legislation that said gold and silver eagles are legal tender. The IRS say, well, yes, but you can't, it's not transactional. You can't buy a coffee with your gold eagle. Well, if the state authorizes gold and silver as legal tender, apart from protecting your rights to do it, they also make it officially currency. There's only two entities that can make something a currency. It's the federal government and the state. And that way, capital gains tax would have to fall away. I'm sure the attorney generals might have to go and have a little argument at the Supreme Court about it. But, I think everybody we speak to see very clearly that the capital gains tax would fall away. And apart from the fact that gold on average goes up in pricing, maintains its purchasing power, goes up in price about 7 to 10% a year on average, it would mean that the capital gains tax would fall away. And that is something Glint can't do. And that's very important. And interestingly, there's been a number of tests at the Supreme Court that have clarified that, these rights. And then even the Biden administration recently, there was some kind of clarification opined that went over again what currency is. And I think it was because in preparation for CBDCs and maybe a bit of a kickback to the crypto world and stable coins. And they said, well, to be currency, you have to be transactional, which, cryptocurrencies are, but you have to be legal tender in this country. So we don't even care if Bitcoin's made legal tender in a different country. It has to be legal tender here. And so that was their way of kind of putting crypto in its place and preparing itself for CBDCs. But I think, I don't know if it was intentional or not. They forgot about what the state's rights are, but of course the state can too. So it's very important that the state legislature gets behind this. It's very important, I think, that your listeners get in touch with their legislators and tell them how important this is. And yes, it can be done practically. That's important too. I mean, I think that's the biggest gift I can give Louisiana, is standing up in front of people and saying, you might be thinking, what are they talking about? Making gold and silver legal money? How can that possibly happen? Well, guys, it's already happening. Download Glint yourself and start using it. That's the biggest gift I can give right now.
And you may be giving it, and you may be giving it sooner rather than later when we invite you down to testify, perhaps next to me in front of the Senate Commerce Committee, and that will give me an opportunity and us an opportunity to meet you in person and maybe even feed you some crawfish down here.
That would be my privilege.
Jason, so if Louisiana were to get across the finish line with this, is there something to be said for first mover advantage? Will the state have some added benefits for being the first one across the line for this?
How about, not just the golden heart of America, but the golden heart of the world? I mean, I think what I've always envisaged with Glint, and I think, if you do it at the state level, it's another level again, is that you're just creating it's not just an easy way to buy and sell gold. It's not even just a way to be able to spend gold and use it as money. It is a framework for building a complete gold-based financial services ecosystem. You imagine everything you normally do in the existing fiat currency system, being able to do it on top of gold pension plans, collateralized gold lending, leasing. I mean, whatever builds on top of fiat, you can build on top of gold. And I think you imagine all the kind of businesses that would want to set themselves up in Louisiana to benefit from this. Because I think it'd be clear, anyone in America, in fact, anywhere in the world, would be able to open an account with the Louisiana gold currency. And so it would attract funds from all over the world. Do you know how much gold is traded every single day?
Tell us.
It's a lot. I think it's $195 billion, something like that.
Wow.
$162 billion a day. It's a huge market. It's a $15 trillion market. And Louisiana will be right at the center of that. I think your treasurer recognizes this. It would be an incredible opportunity for your state and for all the people of the state as well.
Jason, when Representative Cruz was talking to us about this originally, it drew a comparison in my mind, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the setup of the state of Delaware for credit cards. They have kind of the market cornered for credit cards. And so they get all of the benefits from having been the place that did the best regulatory setup for credit cards across, perhaps in the world, but at least in the United States. And that was the same kind of thinking I had about us being the first in the state, or even the first in the country, or even the first in the world. Exactly. This is going to be basically an economic boon to the state, because it would create an entirely new, not just industry, but an entirely new way of doing business.
Yeah, I mean, $162 billion a day traded on the COMEX over the counter on ETFs. Why would you continue to do that where you're doing it? If there's capital gains tax charged, why wouldn't you just move on to the Louisiana gold currency platform? I mean, the mind boggles at the opportunity. I mean, that might not happen straight away. As I said, there might be some legal tussles with the SEC, with the IRS, etc. But it's a phenomenal opportunity. Phenomenal.
And we have a great attorney general.
And we do have a great attorney general who I believe would be on board. And when you come down, we're going to make sure that you get to meet the Louisiana attorney general. And I think you would like her very much. She's doing a great job and really has been pretty active opposing the CBDC, which we view as sort of a very, very sinister globalist effort to constrain our economic freedom and ultimately to surveil our economic life. We don't like it one single bit. So when we testify, the next time I testify before one of these committees or talk to one of these legislators, then I'm going to be able to tell them confidently that the capital gains tax should fall off if this law passes and it's implemented properly. There should no longer be a capital gains tax associated with this.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think there's some, and also you're not alone. It would be great if you were first. It would be great, but there are. At last count I had, there are up to 25 U.S. states that are either considering, working on, drafting, submitting, or even passing laws to do with transactional gold legal tender. And treasurers across the nation are starting to liaise with each other and work together. This is the states using their constitutional framework the way it should be to keep the federal government in check.
That's right. And one of the points that I've made repeatedly with Representative Cruz and Treasurer Fleming is that if the people have a constitutional right to invest transactionally in gold and silver, to use it as tender, which we do, as you said, under Article 1, Section 10, the legislature, if they prevent that from occurring, they are obstructing the exercise of a constitutional right that Louisiana citizens have. And that is not the function or the role of the legislature. And as a constitutional attorney, that's my position on it. Of course, and they're saying, well, what about the risk associated with it? And we say, well, there's certain risk associated with anything and everything that you do. But the last time I checked, we don't have a big brother government in the United States. We allow people to invest, to take risks, to succeed and to fail. And it's not the government's responsibility to preclude citizens from exercising a constitutional right. And this is just that. They have the freedom to do it. And we hope to be able to implement it right here in Louisiana. And we also want to make sure that as soon as we get the secure date, when the bill will go before the Senate committee, we'll send it out to you, and hopefully you can come down for a day or so and testify. We think we have a very good chance. We're pressuring them hard and pushing it hard, and it would be a real privilege to have you come down.
Well, it would be my privilege to come down. If any of those people are listening, I'd say, this is about economic justice. This is about protecting the rights of the smaller people. It's easy for bigger people to deal with inflation and stuff. Why would you not give them that choice? It's already their right. Why would you not enable that choice?
So well said. Well, Jason, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate the time, and the scenic view you have behind you is not disappointing. How can people learn more about Glint? You said that they can check out the app and they can start using it now if they want. Would you remind us?
Yeah, you can download the Glint, go to your favorite app store, Google or Android or iOS, and download Glint Pay, look for Glint Pay, You can go to the glintpay.com website as well. It takes a few minutes to register. We do need to have your information because, as I said, we're regulated and we need to know who you are. And if later on in your account life, we need to make sure that no one else is accessing your account. So we need to know you intimately. Some information you have to give us. We store that information very securely, and just try it out. Put yourself on your own personal gold standard. And look, this is a movement, and we can't do this on our own. We're standing on the shoulders of giants wherever we meet them. I'm standing on your shoulders right now. And we're building an army of advocates here for sound money, and we need you to tell the world about it. Unfortunately, Glint is still the best kept secret. We have a couple of 100,000 registered users. We have about 50,000 monthly active clients. But we need to grow. We want to be in millions of clients in the USA. So please also share and tell people the good news.
The thing that will allow us to do that with great enthusiasm is that what you are doing, Jason, is creating a service that will serve and support economic sovereignty on the part of every individual and every citizen. And it's all about freedom and individual sovereignty and the capacity to pursue our dreams as unencumbered as we possibly can be. And what you're doing is facilitating that fundamental principle of our constitutional system. So we are so enthusiastic about supporting you. Look forward to meeting you, and thank you for all of your very, very good work, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to The State of Freedom, LLC at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.